and welcome to Visible Voices, the podcast. Our programme designed specifically to delve deeper into the lives and stories of our amazing Dentsu people who have all taken the time to share their stories on Visible Voices, the short film. Today, I am so excited to be with Clio Rossier, who is Senior Salesforce Consultant and also Net Zero Cloud Product Lead at Dentsu and Merkle. To be honest, Clio, you captured the hearts of so many people. Welcome to the podcast and thank you for taking the time to be with us today.
Thank you so much for having me, Pauline. It's so amazing to be there. And honestly, it's my first podcast ever, and I'm so excited about it. So thank you for having me.
Well, we're going to have lots of fun on this podcast. And what's been amazing is since we had the film and we spoke on screen, we've been able to meet in person, which was just amazing to have the opportunity to meet in person as well. And now we're here recording the podcast. And what's so great is that when you were on the podcast, you captured the hearts and minds of so many colleagues and people with your story. What was it like for you after the film was released?
I had really lovely feedback of people that were saying that it was very brave of me and courageous to put myself forward like this. And to be very honest with you, to me, it doesn't really look like courageous because it's part of me. So I was very touched by the fact not just that people will react to it very positively, but that actually it rings for them some points and reflection. I think that was the main point for me to do these videos. And one thing that struck me was that somebody write me behind the scene, I would say a private message to actually say thank you because he was a guy, he would never do it as this, and having people and that doing it lively, that was very encouraging him to be more his true self. So I think that to me was the most incredible feedback.
That's amazing. And I think it can be a scary experience filming and sharing your story, but also then trying to explain it to others. And during the film, you talked about a magic wand. I would love for you to share more about that magic wand, maybe what it was like before you found the wand, as well as what the wand was and how it's been since.
The magic wand is very much the idea that I felt before being actually um, discovered as a neurodivergent person. So I have ADHD and I'm dyslexic, dysorthographic, and have few of the neurodivergency, I would say, issues because it's hope you see it. But before knowing I had ADHD, I felt that there was something missing in my life which I couldn't put the finger on. I didn't understood why there were certain things that were so logic I couldn't do in a way that was satisfying to me. And I had a very strong perfectionist issue where that was blocking me. And so the magic wand was the idea that why on earth, what do I need on earth to actually make it happen? And I was like, I don't know, at a certain point for me, it has to be a magic wand or something, because if I cannot doing it, how is it gonna work? Because I don't know how to move myself forward.
Mm-hmm.
And hence the magic idea. And also I'm somebody who's kind of whimsical. I think it does show in the background that you can see, which is very personal to me. I would normally not show as much personal thing of my life, but I definitely was able okay to do it with this podcast. So the magic idea was totally something I would call it this way, but I guess for some other people it might have another name. It's just the idea that something's going wrong for you and that you need like this additional thing that may or may not help you in the long term.
And for you, your additional thing to help in the long run has been medication.
Indeed. once I knew that I had ADHD, I took my first pill, and there, it was like my head would definitely open. I felt like if you take like an old clock that is stiff and not working, I would think that the wheel finally had some type of oil, and my brain could finally go through the thing that was stopping me so much. So it was definitely magic to me.
Wow. And because we hear a lot about the term neurodiversity, neurodivergent, and it can be a little bit of a scary space to
Yeah.
understand. Can you just give a little bit of context around neurodiversity and that umbrella term and what that means?
Basically, it's just a fact that they differentiate. So they, being scientists or medical people, they differ the way that there is neurodivergent and neurotypical. So neurotypical would be like Mrs. as Mr. and it's not everyone that has classical view and no cognitive issue, I would say. And then neurodivergent are all the people that just have their brain wired slightly differently than neurotypical, and have the ability to actually get to certain ID slightly more quicker,
Mm.
which is a great part, and have certain disabilities, or I would say more complexity for certain type of what we call standard things we would expect of somebody in this life. So it might be about emotional regulation, it might be about doing certain tasks that seems boring to us. It could be about all the OCDs. I just said the emotional regulation. There would be as
Mm.
well sensory
Yeah.
issues. So you might felt aggressed by a noise, by a smell, by a visual thing. It could be about the flash that you see on a film that might disturb you, and that's just like a little glimpse of everything.
Yeah.
But if I speak about dyslexia, it would be about all the writing or issue that you might have, etc., etc. So basically, that's what they kind of put under the umbrella of neurodivergency. It's just that our brain are wired slightly differently than neurotypical. It doesn't mean it's better, it doesn't mean it's worse.
Yeah.
It's just different.
It's just different, and different is good. I really loved the way that you talked about the umbrella and that some of the terms without going in, like you don't have to know every single detail, but already just with what you've explained, that gives some idea and some starting entrance for people that are interested or may want to know more. And is that something that you actively encourage people to do, that they should be learning more all
Yeah.
the time?
Yeah, definitely. Because it is not easy to know about ourselves, right? I mean, anyone struggle about that. So if you add upon this a layer about potential neurodivergency issue, it gets even crazier, I would say. What I did experience was knowing more about my, again, I don't like the term, but disease or
Mm.
disability, which I don't think it is, but that's the term medically that they use, is helping me to actually move toward my life slightly better. I would have days where I would have issue where just thinking about very standard things, which sounds to me very complicated on this particular day because I'm a little bit overwhelmed with different things. But that's okay. It does
Mhm.
happen to everyone, right?
Yeah.
It's just the level of overwhelming and how to cope with this. So back to your question, I would definitely think that knowing yourself, knowing how you behave, is helping you because as well you can kind of give the notice to others.
Yes.
Um, and that's something that honestly my partner has asked me for a long time. So now I kind of able to give him the notice slightly better. But as well in in the work environment, it allows me to say, look, um, if you want me to be efficient at that for this or that task, I need this or that.
And I guess what we're seeing, because when we had the conversation after the short film was released internally, what we found was lots of parents that were sharing their stories of their children. And in fact, even during the film, we had Laura share the story of Oscar and his dyslexia. And I guess the other thing that we saw was lots of people talking about late diagnosis. And so we've seen a progression over the number of years where it's much more visible,
Yeah.
but than it would have been as a child. And so for you, diagnosis was slightly later, but you knew from early?
Kind of. I would say my diagnosis was around my 28 years old, when I was around 28 years old. So just for the math, I'm 42 now. I was diagnosed as well as with dyslexia at 14. So ADHD and gifted at 28, and dyslexia, dysorthographia at 14. But from a very young age, I was not the typical child, I would say. I was a child that I need glasses. So what you don't see here right now on my face is that I have very thick glasses. Normally I'm wearing lenses. And so the first thing was I had issue to move because I couldn't see anything. So it's scary for a baby to move when you can't see anything. And then eventually I kept this idea that I was very a calm child. You could put me in a place, I would have a book and I would read the book, and I would read a lot of book very quickly. I learned very fast to read at a very speedy pace, but my writing was a disaster. And I remember a French teacher, because my mother language is actually French, so my native language is actually French, that were thinking that I would do spelling mistake on purpose. And honestly, guys, who wants to do spelling mistakes on purpose when your grades just go down? So I knew that there was something wrong. My great aunt has dyslexia as well, and she said that I probably have not learned to read correctly. She said that to me very around my 10 years old, and I knew there was something different. That's just it.
Do you see that there's been a lot more support that's now in place with that greater awareness?
I definitely think so, yes.
In both work and at home, like in outside of work?
I would say I think so, but in a general way. I think the biggest change was definitely the pandemic. So I think the pandemic is very before and after mark that is very important to make, because after, people were much more fine to speak about personal well-being. And this is part of it. Knowing yourself, knowing if you're neurodivergent or not, doesn't matter. Knowing all of the things that you need to do to be feeling well in a day is actually part of this well-being thing that has definitely raised after pandemic coming up. So as now, yes, I feel company are much, at least international company, are a bit more ready to hear about it. And I would not say it in a company that would not be like Dentsu or Merkel, that is ready actually to hear that I'm not who I like anyone else.
We started to explore in the short film some of the differences between men and women in clear binary language, but I just wonder if you could explain a little bit more around how neurodiversity shows up differently.
So when I was, again, a teenager, we were starting speaking about hyperactivity. We didn't even spoke about ADHD, or we didn't spoke about neurodivergency. We spoke about hyperactivity. And the typical idea of a hyperactive kid is this little boy that would turn around, that would run all over the place, who would move things up, who would shake things up, who would move always on the chair like this. A little boy that is hard to manage, to make it simple. And that was for a long time something that's struck as actually a way to find out if somebody has ADHD or not. So it was always linked with hyperactivity, which would come up physically. That being said, And that's why actually right now you have such an increasing amount of women that get late diagnosed. They
Wow.
never actually think that it could happen in another way for women. And the other way for women is that often hyperactivity comes in the head. It's less, I would say, visible in terms of physicality. There is some impulsivity as well, but that doesn't strike at the same way than generally for men. There's much more masking for women because we are very good at trying to reproduce what the standards are asking us. There's a lot of often depression that might be an indicator of an issue. And a lot of those women have actually been diagnosed as with depression, with burnt out, when in fact they were probably neurodivergent.
Wow. I think, and I mean, we're women here, and it's a really interesting space. I know you shared your age, which one of the other areas which is quite interesting is how neurodiversity interplays with both menstrual and menopause.
Yeah.
I don't mind saying that I'm in the menopause now, and but it comes round. So I just wonder, have you seen much research, evidence, experienced of how how neurodiversity is playing out there?
Not that much, but we know that as soon as the hormone level is dropping, wherever you have obviously menopause or perimenopause or you have your period, the symptoms get increasing.
Right.
So it's very linked to the hormones and it's very linked the symptoms you might experience, brain fog, tiredness, this moment where you forget things, this moment where you're all over the place because your emotions stick in and you don't know what to do with them. This is very ADHD like.
Hmm.
So it's I'm very interested about it because A, to reply to your question, no, there's not that many research about them. And B, it's actually what I do experience if I'm not under my meds.
Wow.
So, how can I work with this in a way that is not going to affect me or affect my work or affect my daily uh, life with my partner, with my cat? It's quite interesting to think about it.
I think it is, and it's really opened my own eyes into some of what you would experience without your meds. In understanding that, but from a menopausal perspective, it really is quite something, and to do that, to go through that each day is quite something. Could you share a bit around what helps? So what's helped you? Of course, your meds, but perhaps maybe in work, and how you've been able to navigate work, and what more should we be doing?
Basically, what did help me the most was to work from home
Mm.
because as soon as I am in an office or an environment that I am not used to, I'm gonna look around all the time. I'm gonna look at the people. What are the people doing? Are they coming to speak to me? Are they coming just to do something else? What is this smell? What is this noise? Why have people? Oh, that's very interesting what they have on this screen in this room. That's my my experience of an office. It's like, why is this person screaming? They could go in a private place to have their call or get it from home. It's all the things. So
Yeah.
somebody was I was listening to a podcast or reading, I can't remember in which case it was, but they were describing the symptom of ADHD like somebody a neurotypical would jungle with three balls, which is already kind of hard in your everyday life, right?
Hmm.
Well, ADHD is like this, but you put like 50 balls. So
Wow.
have fun trying to get them all. And
Wow.
so everything is turning around me. Everything is a sensitivity trigger. So, and anything can also bring me ideas, bring me information. But then I have to handle all this information in my head, plus what is expected of me,
Mm.
which is my work. Hence why, for me, working from home has cut all these problematics I also am not driving, so I don't have my driving license. And so I would take the train to go to an office. And as well, here it's all about sensory
Yeah.
craziness. And I would as well feel the people. You
Mm.
can feel the people if they don't are okay. You can feel that there's an issue somewhere. You can feel they're stressed. So all of these sensors, I could cut them. And since I've cut them, my life just changed, honestly. I'm
Wow.
feeling so much better.
And is technology, I mean, you work in the tech space, which is also phenomenal because we need to see more women working in technology. So, you know, hats off to you for leading the way there as well. But has that been an enabler
Yeah,
to help you in work?
definitely. I had to really think about what do I want to do in my life, and for a long time, I couldn't figure that out. I knew it was good-ish with a little bit of design. I knew it was good-ish with some administrative things because I can be very organized in a certain way. But I knew I could as well be very innovative, and I just didn't know what to do with all those skills, I would say. And eventually, again, back to the pandemic,
Mhm.
I had the chance to reskill and to think about that in a way that I had the time to think about it, because I mean, in the pandemic, nobody would have to do could do really anything except amazing people from NHS to speak in the UK
Yeah.
language. And so I went to it. I went to technology. I said, look, actually, I'm kind of geeky anyway. So embrace technology, embrace innovation, embrace the fact that you have ideas, you are very proactive. I come up with new way to do things. I'm pushing for certain agendas. And I thought the only place I could do that was actually in technology and in an international environment.
Yeah.
Because if I would do that in Switzerland, although I am in Switzerland, don't get me wrong, but in a very Swiss company, nobody wants to hire
Mm.
me. They're scared.
And I guess in some ways that journey of making a firm stand in technology, you know, as a young girl, is that something that you thought like I will be in technology?
No, no, I mean, don't get me wrong. My mother is a graphic designer and my father is a server specialist.
Okay.
So in some way, I'm now like, I'm the firstborn child. I'm kind of a big mix of both of them
Yeah.
right now. And I always had a chance to experiment with Apple products, or yeah,
Yeah.
is what it is, because my mom would have computer, so I knew very quick was a floppy disk. I knew very quick what CD-ROM was, and then obviously cloud. I used to use certain very design specific program
Mm.
quickly because I thought that was very interesting, but no one told me, hey, you can go to tech. The standard path for me would have been to go to university, which I didn't do. And if I would have ended up in the university, because I had a professor that was so amazing in the last years of, I would say, high school, I would end up doing medieval French just
Yeah.
because it was interesting, not because I had thought about my life.
Yeah.
Oh, I also wanted to be a stylist, but I discovered I don't like to sew, so what's the point?
I love that. It's really interesting because controversially people sort of pigeonhole and say, oh, you know, somebody who's neurodivergent, maybe they should be in a specific industry like technology because they're geeks. But that's not really true. Yeah. Like everyone, there's lots of people in technology. So in some ways, would you be saying to somebody that's neurodivergent that they can literally, you know, think about the choices, especially a young person, the choices are endless?
I think so, yes. I think what is important is about, again, back to you, a question you had earlier in the talk, is about knowing yourself. And what I now give as an advice to younger women who sometimes ask me for advice is that I said to them, what do you don't like doing? And often the question, they look at me like, what? Normally we ask you what you like. I'm like, no, 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 no. What do you never want to do again in your life if you have some type of experiment of work? And they would come up with certain things. And then I would say, what are people telling you you're good at? And they would tell me other things. And then I'm like, then if you take that as information, find a job that can match it wherever the place is.
I like that. And it's really nice to turn the dialogue into what do you not like so that you can make sure that you're working in something that you enjoy.
Yeah.
Because there's a real passion for enjoyment as well. So I really would love to know what comes next for the great Clio.
I don't know yet. That's, see, I, for a long time, thinking about the future for me was a nightmare because thinking about the future is so many possibilities. So my head would explode and eventually it doesn't give you any reply. But I learned that when we speak about the future, we can think about like roughly 10 years. So roughly 10 years I can kind of manage now.
Yeah. Okay.
And I would say that hopefully, I really, really want to develop sustainability tech, hopefully in Merkel and Dentsu, and find a way to really give our clients a possibility to understand how they can manage their data around sustainability better, so that we can definitely help the planet feeling much healthier, I would say.
Yeah.
And when I see all those controversial way of people saying that climate change is not a thing, which just bring me mad. Yeah, that's what I do. I want to change, and I want to change as well the way that women are perceived on the workplace, the neurodivergent are perceived in the workplace. Kind of idealistic.
Wow. Where do you get that drive from, Clio? Where's that passion come from?
It's just me. I don't know. I really don't know.
I'm going to ask you some questions about what you'd like to see change, but I'm going to break them down in a slightly different. I'm going to ask you first, what would you like to see change in technology? Maybe for neurodivergent people more broadly. What would you like to see in the technology industry?
So right now, the buzzword is AI, of course.
Mm.
There's something very important for AI. It is something that is not that much sustainable, but it's so interesting. I would say the first thing I want things change is putting sustainability and ethic in everything we do in terms of
Mm.
technology. And if we think about how we can be better in terms of ethic and respecting others for the way they are, plus you add sustainability to that, I think we should kind of have a greater outcome and future.
I really like that, and I think this world of the entrance and the opening up of AI has really started to take shape, and it's almost as if we haven't touched the surface yet, but
Yeah,
it's already embedded in lots of parts of our lives that we don't even realize, but we still haven't touched
yeah,
the surface. So the opportunity is
yeah.
great. So if
And
that's
there's, if I may,
yes, of
if I may,
course,
Pauline, there's so many bias that have been that the AI have been told about.
yeah,
Um, I'm gonna do a recommendation, although to another podcast, although this one is absolutely amazing. But there is a podcast from Brené Brown, which
hmm
is Dare to Lead, where she speaks about AI and ethical AI with a woman who has done some tests. She's a African American woman, and she has discovered that, for instance, the AI will only recognize her if she put a white mask.
yes.
How unfair is this?
you're absolutely right. And in fact, just this week, I was having an in-depth conversation with a number of DEI leaders around
Mm,
ethical AI and those challenges, because AI is at stage as good as it was taught. So
mm,
this is a really new area that we need to stay very close to,
yeah,
and to ensure that it's able to match the ability that it has,
yeah,
but in the right way. So I
yeah.
think you call out a very good point. And Brené Brown's podcast, Dare to Lead, is a great one to listen to.
It is.
How about for our industry? We're in
Mm,
the industry of advertising, marketing, communications. We engage, we have a huge responsibility.
yeah.
What more could we be doing?
Can I share a dream before replying to your
Yes,
question?
of course.
My name is Clio,
Yes.
and I mean Dentsu is kind of in the communication area, right?
Yes.
So one of my dream would be to get a Clio for something I would have contribute doing.
Wow. Well, you're contributing now.
Yes.
And you've eloquently shaped a conversation that some find difficult, but has also been very empowering. It's been very informational without being overwhelming, and done in such a clear and accessible way. And the language that you've used has been very empowering. So I
Thank
think
you.
you should definitely win an award. um, and then I also would love to understand, in terms of how what advice for people that want to come into our industry, for people that are worried about being their true self
Mhm.
in the workplace, in any workplace. What advice can you share with them around being their true self if they believe they are or have been diagnosed
Mm.
on the neurodivergent scale?
I mean, in terms of communication, I think it might be a slightly easier or in a domain that is looked at a little bit more in a arty way. I think it's people are more open to welcome people as they are, with pink hair, blue hair, with LGBTQI plus preferences, with anything. I think people are more open, and as well because it's in their interest, because the more diverse people you get, the better the outcome is in terms of the result of your communication. That's just as simple as that. Now, when it comes to jobs that are more called serious, I mean, in Switzerland, I think about banking,
Yeah.
right? Anything in terms of finance, in terms of yeah, accountability, things like very or legal, and even leaders and CEO, it's never really well seen yet to be so much your true self. However, what I did experience is that when I started to really be myself, so in a magical, whimsical, unicorny, glittery, pinky way, even at work, with some obviously turning down some of the glitters sometimes, or the pink or the unicorn part, people actually react well to this because they see you as an authentic person. And
Mm,
trying to mask yourself, trying to fit in a box that doesn't suit you, people actually feel it, and they feel that you're miserable because of that. So if you are somebody who wants to have whatever color of your hair and you are in banking, either the bank can accept you or the way you are, and if they can't, maybe you're not in the right place or in the right job. So I don't know. It's very much about being as well honest with you. Do you want to stay in a place that you feel that you cannot be yourself? And I'm just linking that as well to when people are looking for a job, and it's not an easy thing to do, right? And people that are neurodivergent, or people or women, or people from diverse background, if you cannot be yourself in your with your employer, eventually it's never going to work for you. So it is so important to find a place where you can thrive. And I know I am very lucky to be actually in one of these. It's not the case of everyone. So I'm kind of very grateful for that.
Well, Clio, I think that is a wonderful note to end on. It has been an absolutely fantastic journey and exploration into your life and into the world of neurodiversity from your perspective. So I thank you so much for being so honest and sharing so much. It's been truly, really educational for me. I've really enjoyed it. And I'm so excited that we get to continue this journey and hear more from you going forward. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Pauline, for having me again. I'm really, really grateful for this opportunity.
Wow, that was amazing. What an extraordinary journey and story that we have been on with Clio, learning about neurodiversity and understanding the world from a neurodivergent perspective. In Clio's own words, it's so important to find your own space, to find where you can be yourself and that you can thrive. And with that, I'd like to thank you for joining us at Visible Voices, the podcast, and hopefully look forward to seeing you next time.